to take this opportunity to welcome you to this briefing, where we get the updates from the Minister in the Presidency. The updates have been going on regular basis, and they are there to inform all the residents of South Africa. They are there to inform the region, they are there to inform the continent and the world at large. And this is the official statement and position of the South African government. Thank you very much and welcome. Minister.
Thank you. Good afternoon. There was an important announcement this afternoon from the Reserve Bank. Government welcomes the decision of the Monetary Committee of the Reserve Bank to keep the repo rate unchanged at 3.5%, implying that fears of inflation on food and non-alcoholic beverages by some analysts may have no basis, as government, through the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, continues to take action to prevent inflated food prices. In addition, South African businesses, in their engagement with the President, have committed themselves to prioritize the rebuilding of South Africa and the eradication of hunger and poverty. And thus, the decision to maintain the repo rate at the current level goes a long way to make it possible for all the players to play their part. In terms of progress with the investigations on the deaths and damage to property, the South African Police has revised the total number of deaths in Gauteng, 279, and KwaZulu-Natal to 258 as related to the unrest. The revision of the records happens when those who were injured ultimately succumb to their injuries. Of the reported deaths in Gauteng to date, 42 cases of murder have been opened and 37 inquest dockets have been opened. In KwaZulu-Natal, 171 cases of murder have been opened and 87 inquest dockets opened. In addition, the SAPS have to date opened 132 cases of arson in KwaZulu-Natal. Law enforcement agencies are continuing with their investigations to ensure that instigators and key participants to the unrest are brought to book. There are no new updates as it relates to arrest of the instigators and key participants. The security situation: there are no new incidents of destabilization that have been reported across the two provinces or any other province. And we urge the public to regard as fake news claims that there have been incidents along the N1. Law enforcement agencies have verified that both the N3 and N2 are fully secured and operating smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. That was the straight, concise, up-to-date information on the situation in the country. Minister, with your kind permission, we are going to invite questions that we can take. Before I take our online questions, I will first request questions from the press room. The protocol is to identify yourself and the media house from which you come from. Yes, my chief.
Thank you so much. Minister, it's Governor Nichols from ENCA. You've said that there were no new incidents of destabilization. A report on Reuters about a few hours ago that all the movement of cargo at the Durban harbour has come to a halt after the carrier sent an email. The Durban Harbours Control sent an email saying that they've been a victim of a cyber attack. We've also seen correspondence from Transnet instructing all of its employees not to log onto their emails as the entity has also been a victim of a cyber attack. Could you please respond to that attack and whether or not the South African views this as part of planned destabilization of the country? Secondly, Minister, we've seen the appearance of at least 4 people in the country's courts on charges of incitement to cause public violence, and we would like to know whether those people that have appeared in courts are part of the 12 people that the government said were masterminding this insurrection, or whether none of those masterminds have been arrested yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I see any hand? Thank you very much. We can go to the online questions. Takalani, take us through the online questions. If you can take just 4 for a start, if there are more than that.
Thank you. The first question that we have is from Marvin Adams, and the question is, as the police or defense force approach the National Treasury for approval in terms of the PFMA or Treasury regulations or the Appropriation Act, and if so, can we please have the amount that was approved for the deployment? And we have a question from Rebecca Davis from Daily Maverick, and the question
take
is
them a little bit slower.
And the question from Rebecca Davis from Daily Maverick, could Minister please clarify who accompanied former President Zuma to his brother's funeral and how he was transported? And the following question is from Takira from ETV News. The question is, could we please get clarity on the procedures that police, SANDF and CPF members are following when searching for the looted goods? Do they have search warrants? If not, how are they lawfully entering people's homes to conduct searches? And the following question again from Takira, which will be the 4th. The Amnesty International is calling on South African authorities to reveal what they knew in the days leading up to the violence and for people to be held accountable for the death. And what intelligence did authorities have before the mass looting and destruction? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Minister, initially I thought I'll take only 1 round, so we'll request you to take the 2nd round when we reach it. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you for the questions. Let me start with the questions that were raised from the journalists in the room. Whether the cyber attack on Transnet is linked to the continued unrest, at this stage we do not know. We are investigating, and when that is confirmed or disputed, dispelled, we are going to make that announcement. That is as straightforward as that, but currently we are treating it not as an unrelated event. In terms of the 4 persons, the 4 suspects, whether they are part of the masterminds, what our investigators, they're saying the 4 suspects are part of the key players in the, whether they're called masterminds or whatever, they are key players, and that's why they've been arrested in the case. And then let me go to the questions that are online. There was a question on who accompanied former President Jacob Zuma to the funeral of his brother, as granted permission by the Commissioner of Correctional Services. He was accompanied by correctional officers supported by law enforcement agencies. And we are to confirm that he has returned back to the Escort correctional facility as we speak. And then the other question was, has the police or defense force approached National Treasury for approval in terms of the PFMA, Treasury regulations or the Appropriation Act environment limitations? If so, can we please have the amount that was approved for the deployment? I think we need to first clarify a few things. The police will operate within their budget because it's their duty to protect the country. And the defense force also operate within their budget and within the resources that are available. When the deployment is being approved, they look within their own budget and say what are resources that they need, and then submit that to the president to approve, and also to Parliament in line with the Act. So, and the other question is, what is the amount? Yesterday I indicated that we are still talking of estimates amount because the deployment continues and gets revised. Currently, the estimation that has been submitted to Parliament for the 25,000 for the initial period of 1 month, and they are revising the submission to increase the term of the deployment of SNDF. The estimate is 615 million rands. The other two questions was the question on Amnesty International.
Yes, there was, Minister.
And the question on Amnesty International is whether what we must reveal what we knew in the days leading up to the violence, and for people to be held accountable for the death, what intelligence authorities have before the mass looting and destruction. I think Amnesty International is going beyond their own scope of work. What we have committed, that's why we are reporting the number of deaths, the number of the murders, and also the inquest. So the full investigation is going to be held and make sure that those who are accountable are held liable. It's not in the best interest of this country to disclose the intelligence information that was at the disposal of the state. And Amnesty International must be satisfied with the fact that everybody who has died or every damage that has been caused in this country will be fully accounted for, and those who have murdered people will be fully will be apprehended and brought before the law so that they can face the consequences of their action, whether by planning the unrest or by killing people during the unrest. And then the last question was, I can't recall the last question.
Minister, I think from what I can see here, all the questions that we took from online were all answered. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll take another batch there.
Thank you very much, Minister. Colleagues, we are taking the very last batch of the questions so that also we can release the Minister to attend to other pressing needs. Let me start with the hands inside, and then we'll quickly check if there is any question online.
Thanks very much, Pravili. Minister, it's Tumaola Mohlaudi from Newsroom Africa. My question is just about in collation of the stats, particularly of those who were killed in the violence that we saw. How do you differentiate if someone was killed during the acts of violence and looting that we saw in KZN and Gauteng specifically? If someone had died, was caught up during the waves of violence, or if they were caught up in maybe a robbery that wasn't necessarily related, how do you differentiate, or is everyone who died during that period also put in amongst those statistics? If we can just get clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Your turn.
Aye, Minister, it's Govan again. Further reports then that police and intelligence officials are guarding police stations in Gauteng in anticipation of attacks on them, particularly police stations which have arms storage facilities. Are these reports correct or not? And you've just said new information that the people who have appeared in court have been identified by your investigators as key players. Are you able to say whether the government believes that these people who have been appearing in court form part of a network and had organized this together? And what about the other 8? Do you expect all 12 to be arrested? And finally, then, Minister, today we had the Police Minister Bekitele meeting with the Phoenix Community Protection Group, and we've now got confirmation from the mortuary in Phoenix that there are at least 30 unidentified bodies there, and further reports that there was a high number of people killed in Phoenix when the community sought to protect themselves. Has the government condemned what happened in Phoenix? What are your investigations saying at the moment? And can you confirm that there are those number of people that have been killed in Phoenix? And has anyone been arrested for what's happened in Phoenix? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this brings us to the end of the questions from here. I'll then just check with Takalani if we have the last few questions on the online platform.
No, thank you. We do have questions, and we have questions from Mandy from 702. And the question is, the NPA says they have not been brought evidence yet of charges of crimes against the state or treason or sedition. And the most serious offense that the NPA is prosecuting is incitement to commit public violence. And the question is, where are the insurrectionists? Are they still at large? Or is government worried about further violence or acts of insurrection if they are not arrested? And there's Marvin Adams, who firstly is reminding that they asked Minister a few days ago if government viewed the unrest as a domestic terrorism. And the minister said no. And they said, but the Minister of Justice was quoted saying that people arrested could possibly face charges of terrorism. And does government view these incidents as a form of domestic terrorism? And the Marvin Adams again, people living with disabilities are saying that every sphere of society have been earmarked for COVID-19 vaccination. Apart from people living with disabilities, civil society has asked when will government stop seeming to marginalizing people with disabilities, and continues to ask to say, is the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities a functioning department? And what are the plans to get started with vaccination of this group? And why haven't we heard from them with regards to COVID and people living with disabilities? And what will be the last two questions? It's from Tando Mayeko from Business Day, and said, has the government uncovered any links between the 4 suspected instigators of the insurrection who appeared in court this week? And the last from Alan Sekome from Business Day, and why does the minister say the state is not treating the cyber attack on Transnet as an unrelated event, what makes the government think this event is related to insurrection in KZN? Back to you and thank you. This was the last question.
No, thank you very much, Takalani, and the colleagues who asked the questions in the press gallery will then allow the minister to answer the very last questions, and thank you.
Thank you. I think let me start with the last question. I think the person did not hear me properly. I've said currently we are treating the cyber attack on Transnet as an unrelated event, not as related, unrelated event. But we are investigating, and when information comes to the fore, we'll either confirm or dispel whether the incident is related. So I think we must get those facts covered. And there's there are two related questions. The question on whether all the 4 who have been arrested and whether all 12 will be arrested, and have we uncovered the links between the 4 who are already arrested. First, the question of whether we have uncovered the links between the 4 who have been arrested, who are in custody, is now going to jeopardize the case, because if we disclose that, what are we going to argue in court, and and you are just going to then share with the public or with their defense strategies to defeat the case of government. So that I'll leave to yourself to follow the court cases and determine it for yourself. And whether the 4 are the masterminds, or I thought we have clarified that they are key role players in the incidences, and I'm not going to disclose how key are they in that, but whether the 12 will be arrested, the remaining 8 will be arrested, and we have communicated yesterday and day before that all investigators, be they 12, instigators, be they 12, be they more, they will be apprehended. And we said, irrespective of their standing in society, they will be apprehended and will be dealt with in accordance with the law. And a related question to that is the issue of whether the Minister of Justice indicating that they could face charges of domestic terrorism, and the argument that the NPA have said the charges that they're currently investigating are public violence. We have clarified even yesterday that it's not in the space of government to prescribe the charges that must be preferred against the suspect, because the judicial process and the prosecution process, it's independent of government. But if you recall, even when the suspects appeared, the prosecutors have indicated in court that they will add further charges. So whatever the charges will be, there will not be an exclusion of a charge that is relevant to the offense that has been committed. And the other question is the question around, let me start with the Phoenix, to say there are 30 unidentified bodies. Have government condemned the attacks? I think even when the situation was still tense, government condemned the attacks and vigilantism and urged communities who were protecting themselves to work with the Community Policing Forum, the Blue Community, and the local South African Police Service. And we encouraged our citizens not to take the law into their own hands, but to wait for law enforcement to do their part. And that was the harshest condemnation, including a condemnation of stoking racial tensions in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And that's why we have deployed the police minister. Is not the first time that he's going there. He has been there before to deal with the very tensions and the very issues that are there. And the unidentified bodies, whether they are 30, and this will relate to whether the statistics of deaths are just for anybody who died during that period. The unidentified bodies will update the number as the police completes their investigations, whether they are murders and whether those unidentified bodies are linked to the days where there was the unrest. And similarly, we're not clubbing all deaths that has happened at that particular period. In terms of our policing, and they do that work, they verify that the place where that person died, is it linked to the unrest? And that's why we communicate the numbers that we communicate, and we communicate those numbers because we want to show that we are tracking the numbers, and we also tell you that these are murders or there's an inquest, and we update as the numbers are revised, whether more bodies are confirmed as having died from the incidents, or other bodies have other persons have died from unrelated incidences. But also those who are in hospital because of their injuries, when they die, we also update to say whether they're in inquest stage or whether they have been classified as murders, so that, and you know, when they are murders, they must be investigated and people apprehended and dealt with in accordance with the law. And there's a last question, no, not the last. On the related questions to this, there's the last question around the police guarding and intelligence officers guarding. Intelligence officers will never guard key installations. It will be the police and the military who guard key installations. As we have indicated, part of the deployment of our police service and also our military is to guard key installations. And the installations that you have described, police stations, more especially the ones that hold ammunition, are key installations that must be protected because we cannot leave anything to chance. And there's an unrelated question, and I'm taking this opportunity to clarify it, because if we do not clarify it, it will send a wrong message to the country. In our country, when we're designating sectors, we designate sectors in terms of economic activities. And the people who are being, and then we designate it also in terms of age cohort. And if you have noticed now, we've progressed further. When we said we are vaccinating the 60-year-old plus, we do not exclude the persons with disability. And our health facilities are always geared to make sure that they're accessible for persons with disability. There's not been any exclusion. When we opened for the 50 plus, there was no exclusion of persons with disability, because we don't discriminate against persons with disability. For us, they're part of South African citizens, they're South Africans, and they be serviced like any other. And our facilities are geared to that, including now when we designated the 35 plus, to 35 to 49, the persons with disability were included in that number. Our facilities remain viable for them to use, and therefore I don't know why we need to have a special approach. We have not had a comment that said, I am a person with disability, and I've gone to a facility, it was not accessible, and I could not be assisted by the nursing staff or the health care workers who were at the place for me to receive my vaccination. If those incidents take place, they must be reported quickly so that we can attend to those, because all South Africans of the particular age cohort that is being vaccinated, they must be vaccinated irrespective of whether they are with disability or they are not. And I'm sure members of the media, you know of the commitment that we said we were going to vaccinate you also as a sector. But given that the opening up, we said, given that we have opened up, let's see how fast we can get to everybody. And some of you sitting here, you are sitting here because you have vaccinated when your age cohort became available. And I can vouch for a few of you who have posted photos that you have received either your first jab or you have received your JJ1 jab. Thank you very much. And we hope to see you tomorrow, and we hope to keep our country safe. In fact, we are going to keep our country safe. We hope for your partnership in protecting South Africa and rebuilding South Africa. Thank you.
From Takira, who said she attempted to get from SABS, but hoping she was going to get an answer from this briefing. And this briefing is with regards to the clarification of the procedures that SABS, SANDF and CPF members are following when searching for looted goods. She said, do they have search warrants, and if not, how are they lawfully entering people's homes to conduct searches? My apology again, Minister. Back to you. Thanks.
It is all right. Thank you. There are two processes they follow. One, they are what they call proactive searches, and the proactive searches, they are then given the search warrants. But there is a second search where what they conduct using Section 22 of the Criminal Procedure Act that says when they have information that the stolen goods are at a particular place and the time to get a search warrant will jeopardize their ability to find the stolen goods, they are they are enabled by Section 22 of the Criminal Procedure Act to proceed with the search. So those are the mechanisms that are using. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. This brings us to the end of this media briefing. As the Minister has indicated, this is part of an ongoing update to the nation, and we will continue updating the nation on what is happening. And I will also plead to all South Africans, including people in the region and Africa, to take only the information that comes from the government of South Africa on the unfolding situation. And thank you very much. This session is adjourned.